There we go. So I will formally open the Architectural Board of Review for June 28th, 2021. First item on the agenda is roll call.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson. Here. Board Member Block.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
Here.
And Chair Moore is absent today. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So second item on the agenda is public comment on any item that is not on this specific agenda. If there is anybody who wishes to speak, please follow the instructions on the screen and further instructed by staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I do see several members of the public have logged on. If you would like to speak on any general public business that's not on today's agenda, please click on the raise lower your hand icon. At this time, I don't see that anybody has raised their hand. Mary, have we received any general written public correspondence?
Thank you, Christina and board members. We did receive written correspondence from Richard Clausen that was distributed to the board prior to this meeting. Back to you.
All right, that being the case, we will close the general public comment and bring it back to our next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the full Architectural Board meeting of June 1st and June 14th. May we see June 1st, please? So do I have a motion for this?
I so move. Second.
Under discussion, I'd like to go to item number 3. Just a very small minutia. Comment number 5. Yeah, 5D. Should, after the word far, should say a way to be impacted. If the maker of the motion could accept that addition to clarify things.
I do. Second as well.
All right. I think we have a motion on the floor.
All right, I can go ahead and take a roll call vote, and I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Olson.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to June 14th. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes from June 14th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Whelan. We have a motion on the floor.
All right, I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yeah.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
I'm gonna have to abstain. I didn't attend that meeting.
All right, thank you. Board Member Olson
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Board Member Whalen.
Yes, didn't hear it.
No worries. Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, moving on to the consent calendar for June 14th, June 5th, 21st, and June 28th. So can we have June 14th up, please? Do I have a motion here?
Move we accept as presented consent
Yes,
minutes for June 14th.
yes, do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Ms. Anderson, thank you. Can we go to, well, right here. So after, on the second line of final approval, all the aluminum and metal connectors, that should read all the metal structure and metal connectors. As it reads, it looks like just the metal, just the connectors are being painted.
Agreeable to the maker of the motion.
Thank you, the seconder.
Still second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes,
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black.
I abstain again, please.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Olson
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
so June 21st, do I have a maker?
I move we accept these as presented.
Second.
Motion by Anderson, seconded by Olson. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, yes, Mr. Willen.
If I'm correct, does this agenda have item D, 3885 State Street?
Yeah, you scroll down. We don't,
That's today's agenda.
that's today's, this was last week's. Mr. Wheeler?
Oh, I'm incorrect. Sorry, I'll let it go.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor?
All right, thank you. I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Abstain, please.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, moving on to today's consent, June 28th. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Well, I think we need to have them read.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Okay,
good point. You're right.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six and board members. We had a jam-packed consent today. Vice Chair Six, Board Member Anderson, and Board Member Black reviewed today's consent agenda. The first item was 3790 State Street. That item received project design and final approval with some conditions. And you can see those conditions are fairly lengthy here. I want to pause on this.
is everybody happy?
Number 8 should say move the poll box with a P, not full box.
Oh, very good hit, yes, as a poll box. There's actually only one light fixture. Okay. Everybody happy?
Item 2 was 727 West Mission Street, and that received project design and final approval with the project compatibility analysis findings being met. Item C was 424 West Rancheria Street. That also received project design and final approval with just a few conditions and comments. The condition to provide alternative planting in lieu of the agapanthus, a condition to provide smaller flowering trees in both planting locations, and the comment that design is handsome and successful, with the project compatibility analysis findings being met.
Shall we keep handsome in there because it's sexist?
That's up for debate. But the fourth item was 3885 State Street, where that project received project design and final approval as well, with some conditions and comments. The condition was that all film should be obscuring white, both on the lower level and the clerestories, and the condition that the door units and side lights should be completely replaced and provide a new assembly matching the full simple lights adjacent to the doors and side lights, and that this project also was found to meet the project compatibility analysis findings.
Yeah, that's, oh, excuse me, one more.
The last item was 1313 Olive Street, and this project received project design and final approval as submitted and meeting the project compatibility analysis findings.
All right, that reads the reading of that consent calendar. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I move we accept as presented with the, also with the addition of Ms. Anderson.
Do I have, Mr. Olson makes a motion? Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Ms. Anderson seconds. Yeah, and under discussion? Hearing none? Let's
One
take a
small
vote.
comment.
Oh,
One
yes.
Comment,
Hold on.
Vice Chair Sick. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Did I speak out of order?
No,
All right.
We're under
there's
discussion.
just one passing comment on 3885 State Street. I really regret the loss of see-through storefront and accessibility as compromising what generates a lively, interactive street experience for both the pedestrian and the shopkeeper.
statement noticed. I think we have a motion on the floor.
All right, this is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote, and I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
So moving on, are there any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances or withdrawals, future agenda items and/or appeals?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Staff has several announcements. I wanted to announce that Chair Moore will not be in attendance at today's ABR meeting. I also wanted to announce that Vice Chair Six will not be in attendance at the July 12th full board meeting. And I also wanted to announce that with the new month, we have new consent reviewers. The July and August consent reviewer rotation will have Chair Moore and Board Member Whalen. And I believe Design Review Supervisor Ms. Inzueta also has a few announcements.
Good afternoon, board members. I just wanted to announce, and I know the consent reviewers already heard this morning or this afternoon, actually. But I wanted to just let you know that effective June 25th, your project compatibility analysis considerations will now be called findings. I know that you've been calling them findings, and they are findings, but in our ordinance, they were identified as consideration or criteria. So those have been officially changed or amended to indicate findings. And also finding number one, if you recall that particular finding actually asked you to make find compliance with the charter and with the municipal code. That has been removed. Your number one finding here will now say consistency with design guidelines. So you don't have to worry about making that particular finding, as those both the charter and the municipal code are not within the purview of a design board. So that's what I wanted to announce with respect to that. Also, just to announce that last week on June 22nd, the appeal for 825 Delavina was heard by the City Council, and City Council did uphold your decision to grant final approval to the project. The vote was 5-2 to uphold the ABR's decision. I don't know if Board Member Olson wanted to provide any more information, but this is just an announcement. There should be no discussion.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Uzzetta. Back to
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
I do have one comment. Our opinion was upheld and without question. And it was the world's longest city council meeting. It went on for 8 hours.
Really?
You're kidding.
Well, Mr. Olson, what was the nature of the no votes? You said 5-2?
Yes. I think it was, in general, it was size of the building. And they were hearing the complaints of the neighbors. There were maybe 30 neighbors who had signed a petition. And at the meeting on Monday, on the site visit, there were also about 30 neighbors with signs. And I think that one of the issues maybe was that it had been stated that there were a couple of buildings next door that were described as shacks. And the owner of that property corrected that record. They were habitable units, and the council asked if there were any windows on that side that would be covered from this building, and there were no windows on the side of the new, that would face the new building. So maybe that's essentially what it was. Maybe Ms. Uzzetta would like to add anything to that if I've left something out.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six and board members. I don't have much to add. I think that there were 2 no votes, as I indicated, Councilmember Sneddon and Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez. Councilmember Gutierrez did not provide a reason for his no vote. Councilmember Sneddon indicated the story poles. I think that was an issue for her, that there were no story poles installed as part of this review. Also, as Board Member Olson indicated, the 2 structures that were up on the south property that had to, they were up against the property line, and they had been referred to as sheds, I guess, at one point by the applicant, but they indeed were our habitable structures. And And I think, yeah, I think it was also maybe just the noticing that we are required to do by ordinance. So that was the most of the I would say the major concerns for the project.
Uh-huh.
I would I would like to add to that the issue of story poles, which was brought up by many. And I had previously thought and said that story poles that sometimes don't seem so important to us because we're there at the meeting. We are trained to read documents that are presented to us. And we sometimes, I think, feel like that's better information than story polls. But as far as the public is concerned, and especially the neighbors, it isn't enough. And I think that story polls, I will continue to try to encourage our board to require story polls because I do think they're important to the public.
It's very well said and noted. Just one more thing on this item. Was there any articulation by the no vote about solutions to reducing the unacceptable size of the building?
The only solution they were offering that I heard was to reduce the size. And
Okay. All right, thank you. Good discussion. Thanks very much. Okay, I think that's it for announcements and discussion. So I think if we can get back to my cheating board, any subcommittee reports? All I have to say is that the highway subcommittee has completed its work, and we're all looking forward to seeing it go through environmental and to some initial comments from the boards, from us, in fact, and other shareholders.
I have an additional comment. If you have finished, Vice Chair Six, with what you were saying, I may have interrupted you.
No, Mr. Olson, I'm through.
So I've had contact with Christina about Funk Zone murals. As you may remember, I've been asking about that now several times. Christina has responded and said that they were addressing my concerns and questions, of which I had many, and that it would at some point return to us with some elucidation of the Funk Zone murals. And I believe in general, with murals outside of the Funk Zone also, that we need clarification of those rules.
Thank you, Mr. Olson, for that information. All right, I think that completes, unless anybody else has anything, that completes our general business agenda. And we can move on to our first item for today, 100 Adams Road Concept Review. This is a proposal for a non-residential addition to the Santa Barbara Municipal Airport on the north side of the Jack T. Rickard Terminal inside the airport operations AOA security fence. Project entails installation of a 2,640 square foot modular building or airline offices with new ramps, stairs, trellis, and exterior lighting. The project requires review by the Planning Commission for a coastal development permit and a development plan. This is a concept review. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines: airport design guidelines. Project was last reviewed on September 21st, 2020. So our applicant, at least the staff, is here. Oh, here, excuse me, there you are. So I see our applicants are here. So if you would go ahead and make your presentation. I think we've reviewed this once before, so I don't think we have to go through the whole boodle, just the changes let's see here. Let me, for our help, we'll say that the last time we heard it, we found the proposal, including the site and architecture, is not acceptable as it does not contribute to the beauty of the existing airport and architecture. Study other ways to solve the program. So, applicants are here. If you'd introduce yourselves.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Manisha from 196 Architect. And I have Henry here as well. So Henry, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Six and board members. Thank you for hearing the airport's proposal this afternoon. I'm Henry Thompson, your airport director, and I've been the director here at Santa Barbara Airport for about 2.5 years now. Although the past year has come with significant challenges and uncertainty, I'm very excited to be here. I come to Santa Barbara with more than 30 years of experience, and we have one of the most beautiful terminals, and we'd like to present our proposal to you today. We've made some changes to it. But before we get into the specifics of it, I'd like to address the board and help you better understand the concept that we're working with, and hopefully provide some context that you may not have received the last time. So first of all, the proposal we present to you today is necessary, and it's important to the operation and continued development of the airport. This proposal is consistent with the existing approved airport master plan, and it's an interim step in the phased expansion of the current terminal. The proposed structure will provide us with needed capacity and the necessary time to appropriately plan and develop and design and work out the financing for the expansion project. This is an interim facility that will allow us to continue to meet our current needs and support a growing airline operation. Specifically, this proposal will provide needed airline back-of-house support space required for the existing airlines and other interested airlines that are interested in starting service here in Santa Barbara. Many of you may remember the Santa Barbara Airport before the existing terminal opened. Some believed it was a charming airport, and indeed it was, but it provided little convenience and was very much over capacity. The existing terminal opened in August of 2011, and this year in August, it will turn 10 years old. And it provides a world-class, unique to Santa Barbara experience in which passengers are always amazed at the beauty and the convenience of the facility every time they come through the airport. We're very proud of our terminal facility. Yes.
If you notice, you have a time clock there, so you have 15 minutes. And so if we could get, we appreciate this background, but if we can get to some of the physical architecture that's our purview, I'd much appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to give you some of the context, and I'll make it really quick, but I think some of this is important. So we're very proud of this terminal, and we're not going to do anything to detract from it. There are not any practical alternative solutions that are going to meet our objectives. So we're coming forward with something that we do believe, is important and necessary. We are currently out of space at the airport, and we need the ability to continue to operate safely, securely, and efficiently. We're behind schedule on the airport master plan project improvements. And again, this project is part of the phasing of that project. and we're operating on a tight timeline. So today we have our architect here, and she's going to present some of the changes that we've made since you last saw this. So thank you.
Thank you. No,
Yes.
Do I have the controls to the plans or do I have to call out the sheet numbers that we need to switch to?
you need to verbally call out where to go. Mr. Bolton is very good at that.
Okay, sounds good. Like you mentioned, you are aware of the project. You've seen where the building is located. I'll go through that part quickly and talk about the changes we have done in the design. So if you go to the second page, please. The building is located on the northeast corner of the existing airport. It's towards the air side and away from the passenger side of the building. If you don't mind going to the next sheet. Program hasn't changed. We still have 3 open office spaces with the restroom and the support spaces that are required for the building. And some of the comments that we received last time was that the design wasn't compatible. It was more of a standard modular building. Can we look at things that can improve the architecture of the building? So we did look at that. If you don't mind going to the next page, because it shows kind of a rendering comparison between the existing modular and this building. So the east elevation is basically the passenger side of the building. The airport side of the building is what you're looking at. And what you can really see is basically the 2 windows. Rest of it is really covered by the existing fence that is there in place right now. One of the suggestions we had was changing it, maybe looking at a sloped roof. So the next elevation, if you don't mind scrolling down. Next elevation shows a configuration of the modular building which aligns with the sloped roof of the existing terminal, and also improvements to the fenestrations to kind of match the proportions of the fenestrations that are on the existing building. And some of the photographs, if you look at that, the watercolor presentation shows much more elaborate window, but actually on the existing building, the window mullions are a lot more straightforward and thinner profiles than what's shown in the watercolored sketches right now. So the goal would be to match the image that's on the G facing south runway. It's the left, yep, that's it. So the idea would be to match this fenestration, the existing fenestration that we have right here, in terms of the appearance of the windows on the proposed building.
Okay.
If you don't mind going to the last elevation of the project right there. This is showing you the elevation of the building from the air side. The dashed line that you see here is the existing concrete wall. So you really don't see the portion of the building below it because of the existing concrete wall and the nearness of this building to that wall. We're actually very close to that existing wall. We did go ahead and differentiate between the sizes of the fenestrations that we have on this side to create a little bit more play, but at the same time maintaining the daylighting that's required for the interior spaces to make sure that we're keeping it as a healthy environment for the office occupants who will be occupying it for 10 hours a day. We also propose adding some trellis features to where we have the entry to the building as well as the exit ramp on the passenger side of the building, to provide some protection as well as create some interesting design features on the 2 sides of the building. So if you can scroll back and look at the elevations in general. So that's the trellis at the entry side of the building right there. That trellis wraps around and covers the ramp and the second entry, which is towards the passenger side of the terminal. Again, the passenger side of the terminal as well, you can only see half of it because half of it is covered by the concrete planter. Half of the building is covered by the concrete planter, and the remaining half is actually covered by a steel fence. So you really don't see that side of the building from the passenger side of the terminal. The finishes would be plaster. There is no mechanical unit on the roof itself. The mechanical units are floor mounted. will be next to the building and covered in a yard space, basically. We did look at, there were some suggestions and some discussions about moving this building closer to the airport building, and we did look at that possibility, and we moved it as much as we could, but there are some limitations we are running into in terms of accessibility and how close we can be to the airport building. So,
All right.
yeah.
So is that your presentation? Anything else?
That's, unless you want me to go back and look at the exiting and the access plans again, I would be more than happy to do that. But as you mentioned, you've seen that before. But we can go. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to. And thank you for your thorough presentation. And with that, we will open the meeting to public comment for anybody who wishes to speak on this particular item. If so, please be further directed by staff in order to do so.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I do see several members of the public have logged into the webinar. Should you like to speak on this item, please click on the raise lower your hand icon. At this time, I don't see that any member of the public has raised their hand to speak on this item. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina and board members. We did receive written correspondence from Richard Clausen, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Back to you.
All right, that being said, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. So if I can have all board members up on screen, please. So Ms. Anderson, we'll start with you.
Yes, the plans indicate a metal roof. Did you give any consideration to matching the S-tile roof on the main building?
We did. The S-tile roofs adds a significant load on the building, structural load on the building. So initially, when we originally came with a flat roof, one of the reasons why we proposed a flat roof was to keep the structural load of the building down and not to require permanent foundations. Since then, we've moved into this metal roof, which actually does require now permanent foundations for this building because of amount of weight it's adding. But if we go to the tile roof, that takes it to a complete different level in terms of the foundation design that we'll have to do for this building. So the modular companies, we've spoken to a few of them, and they're recommending not implementing that approach because of the stress it puts on the foundation. I don't know if you're aware of this site, but this site has a significant slope going away from the building, sloping towards the air side. So that adds another level of complication on the foundation design as well.
Okay.
There is
Those are my only. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to add, there's a precedent of the metal roof on the airport. So right next to this building, there's the tower that has a metal roof right there, as well as in the center of the building, there's another component that has a metal roof on it as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Olson. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Olson.
Yes, perhaps this is a question for staff. There is, the assumption here is that it's an interim addition to the airport. And so what I think I would like to know, and in this case, I think it would be from the staff, is what are the parameters of an interim permit? And does it expire? And could we, if we so wanted to, put an expiration date on an interim permit?
So I'll speak to that just real quickly as the director. The airport master plan calls for expansion of the terminal facility to the south. However, the footprint that the expansion of the terminal goes through is occupied by rental cars. Therefore, the first project of the terminal expansion has to be the terminal garage facility so that the rental cars can be moved into. And Then once the rental cars are relocated, then the actual terminal expansion can begin. So this facility is designed to buy us the time to do that phasing of the master plan expansion on the south side of the terminal building. So how quickly can we do that? I am hopeful, optimistic that we can do that within 5 years. And so that's what we're initially asking for the purpose of this building. But a lot's going to depend upon how the process moves forward with the expansion.
As long as you're answering, Mr. Thompson, I have a quick follow-up on that. Is there any motivation after all of these expansions are complete? Is the new expansion, is the temporary building, interim building in the way of the new expansion, or could it, with due respect, could it stay there and become something, of other functional space?
Vice Chair, you're absolutely right. This interim facility actually sits in the vicinity of the expansion of the terminal to the north. So it has to eventually be gone for the facility to expand to the north.
And that's the expansion you're speaking of.
That's correct. Well, no, the expansion I'm speaking of is the opposite end of the building. That occurs first. And the reason we're doing that end first is because the space is available on the end. But the master plan also calls for expansion on the north end of the building, which is where this interim facility will be placed.
Okay.
And is there a timeline, expected timeline for the northern expansion?
The northern expansion, I would estimate at this point, is 10 years out. So somewhere between 5 and 10 years is where this interim facility will be.
And so perhaps we could go back to Tony as a response to my question regarding whether or not there is a possibility that this permit could have a termination point.
Vice Chair Six and Board Member Olson, there's no provision in the municipal code for a temporary or interim approval, an ABR approval. The project also requires Planning Commission approvals of a coastal development permit and a development plan for the square footage. But there's no provision in the code, like I said, for an interim or a temporary or a time limited approval.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I have a few questions. I appreciate your respect of the window shapes and so forth. Does modular construction allow you to inset? One of the essential features of good Spanish architecture is window insets. Are you going to be able to inset your windows by any significant dimension?
Sorry, so mute. We did talk about doing a 6-inch thick wall to get a little bit of inset. But if you look at the photograph G right there, that window is actually not completely inset. And the one next to it is that wall. I know because we have the drawings of it. It's about 24-inch thick wall, but this one is not. And so the idea was maybe looking at some sort of a treatment right here at the base of these windows to create that feeling of inset, but we are limited to 6-inch stud walls when it comes to modular buildings, unless we create double walls inside.
No. I'm talking more like 2 to 2 inches through. Yeah. Nothing that's I don't want flush window, a flush
right
framing surface. you'll be able to have some insight.
Absolutely, absolutely. The
Right.
windows will be aligned to the inside of the wall face rather than the outside.
Great. We'll look forward to that. And the walls will be full plaster, correct? To
Yes.
match the, and they will go all the way down to the ground with whatever, a weed screed or whatever, there will not be any
Yeah.
floating screen or,
No, they'll go all the way to the ground. We won't have any plywood screen or anything that you see in a typical modular.
okay. And can you speak to, it looks like that you very respectfully and sensitively are detailing the trellis to be attuned with the existing. What about the railings that we see on the end railing? Is that harmonious and at a detail level of the original building?
We would definitely do the wrought iron and look at the original for precedence. There is not too many railings in there. The only one they have is the interior one right now, which you all know is like, it was commissioned as an art piece, that interior railing. But we would definitely look at any of the existing railings on site to complement this one with.
So your intention is quality.
Yes, intention is to do wrought iron railing to complement the Spanish architecture.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
I have one
Excuse
more question.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
Yes, would you give us a little more detailed description of the roofing material, color, and so that we might have a little better idea of what that roofing material is?
Roofing material would be the AE span metal roofing, which is what's used on the other building as well. It's those thinner profile metal roof, which is like a 14-inch or 12-inch panel that you get with a thin profile on top of it. That's what we would be. And the color, what I would recommend is matching the color of the tile roof as much as possible, because the other metal roof is more in line with copper. And I wasn't proposing that. I was proposing that we match somewhere close to the tile roof. So if you look at do you have the additional photographs by any chance? The PDF of the additional photos that are added? So so you can see the metal roof right there on that corner tower. That it's a much darker color. So what we were proposing was trying to find a metal roof that matches the tile color.
I'm sorry, I'm not. Can you guide me to where you're speaking?
So you know where the rotunda is, where that tile pattern in the rotunda is right there. I can't, you got right there, exactly, thank you. I can't point, so it's difficult. And the tower is to the left of it. You see that small rectangle with a brown looking roof? That's actually a metal roof right there.
Okay.
That is a metal roof. So the building goes right in that area. This is where the building sits. So there's actually
Okay.
right now a single ply roof over that trellis currently. So our building would have a roof, metal roof that matches the color of the tile. And we'll bring those samples to you for approval and review once we're at that stage.
Great.
Can I interrupt? Can you, would it be unreasonable to, what is the copper? Is it a platinated copper on the?
It's
on
just
the
a
roo- on
color. It's just a color.
The color, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
it's just a color. Yeah, it's not copper or material. It's not even close to it. Yep.
But it's emulating a darker copper. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, with that, anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
So-
David.
The metal roofs existing that you speak of, can they be seen from the public way? I mean, the roofs themselves?
Yes, you can. You can see them. There's one photograph I added to that. Let me give you a page number for it. So page number 2, see the metal roof on top of the center tower element? as well as the metal roof on the right side on the corner tower element.
Uh-huh.
Right there,
Uh-huh.
those two locations.
Okay.
But this building will not be seen from the passenger side because of the existing fence being so tall.
But you will be able to see that roof through the windows in the terminal, yes? I mean,
That's correct. You will be able to see that roof from the windows.
you'll be looking down on it.
You'll be looking down on it, yeah. So my recommendation was A-Span makes this terracotta color. And that was the recommendation I was gonna bring to the board for review, actual sample piece, so that you could review it. Because that resembles closely to that tile pattern right there.
So can I ask a very naive question? So I realize the advantages of a modular building, but how significant is the difference in cost between a modular building as you're proposing it and a more permanent building with all the traditional details that we would like to see?
So I would say the cost difference would be close to 25 to 30% currently. I think the bigger concern is the time. The schedule-wise modular building has a lot more benefit than a traditional building does. You know?
Mhm.
So as you know, Henry already mentioned, we are late. We've been trying to get this done since last year, but for several other reasons. It's not only not approval, but there's been delays due to COVID as well.
You mean it's not only us?
It's not only you guys, no. There have been
All
other
right.
reasons as well, but that's the benefit that I see is the schedule.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to comments. Who would like to start?
Sure, I will.
Uh-huh. Mr. Wheelan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Despite this discrete location of the building indicated on the site plan, this proposal will have a very large and long-lasting, I dare say, impact on the visual quality of the view, as Mr. Black pointed out, from the interior of the concourse. For those of you who remember fondly the days of the previous airport, the most delightful thing was to go up to the second floor and have a beer and a burger and watch the planes. Well, that's really, that concourse north end window is really the place where you can do that now and watch the planes, even though there is a you have to have a ticket to do that, right? There is a place that you can modestly watch from the airport, but it's nothing like that second floor view. So the point of this being is that roofscape is really the most visible part of this proposal. And I'm sort of torn. I'm of two minds. Well, yes, it should be barrel tile and completely compatible. And the other part of me says, well, this should really look like a temporary building. And we shouldn't try to fool anybody, because that would just be an excuse for making it stick around even longer than anybody really wants it to. So I might offer that the roof color be sort of a turn metal, a green or a patina green, and we not go to too much trouble to make it look just like the terminal. I think that's about all I have to say on this. It's sort of inconclusive, but it is my point of view. This comes from my experience, as I've stated previously. After 30 years at the university, there's 100,000 square feet of modular buildings that are listed as temporary, and some of them are from the 70s. They just never seem to go away. I appreciate the master plan and sticking to their schedule and having a commitment to remove these things. I just don't want to make it look too precious and too good, with the special concern that the roofscape be of enough interest and defer to the view from the concourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Will. Anybody else? Mr. Black, you
Well,
are wiggling.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm troubled by it, but it's going to be the only roof like it in the entire, well, short of the small roofs that have been identified, but looking out from the second level, you're going to see the old airport building and the roofs there, barrel tile, and then you're going to see this. And I'm sure people are going to wonder, well, why does it look like this? Well, because it's 30% cheaper and we built it faster. Those are the only answers, So I'm really troubled by that. That's my only question, or my only comments.
All right. Mr. Olson, Ms. Anderson?
I think that I'm moved by the need for this building. And the fact that there is some reason to believe that it won't be there for 50 years because of this north end expansion. So I'm going to vote in favor of this.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, do you have anything to add, or?
I appreciate that they went with a gable roof and the slope matches the existing building. I mean, I hear everything everyone's saying, and maybe the roof could be more intriguing with a pre-patinaed metal roof. They have lots of options now that it can look like it was copper that's now green or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. So my own comments is, well, first of all, I think this is by far more successful and workable than the flat roof idea. I hear that the applicant is going to do everything they can to provide heavy stucco insets down to the ground. The trellis looks like it's going to match the commitment to matching opening styles of the windows. I think that, we need to be cooperative to the real needs and the complexities and schedules of this very dynamic and complicated beast. I'm speaking of the whole airport, and I hear that the intentions are to continue and ultimately with the quality and the fineness of what we have. So I can't get in the way of those intentions and those complexities and those real needs. I do think that, and I'm glad it was pointed out, these minor copper or copper colored roofs, I think that it would be more authentic for metal to be metal. And especially we have, even though they're minor, we have real metal on the building. I think that every effort should be to match the color and patina, if any, on those existing roofs. And I'm ready to, generally have a conceptually approve this as presented, except for the color and nature of the roof. So, is there anybody who is willing to, or this is here for concept review only? Can we, I guess it was not notified as a approval, an appealable approval, so with the staff, I don't think we can jump to a concept project design approval, can we? We need to stick to what's announced.
Oh, I don't think it's ready for that.
Vice Chair
Okay.
Six,
Yes,
the project today is requesting a continuance to the Planning Commission for their review of a coastal permit and development plan. And it'd be very helpful if you could give good comments on the project compatibility, soon to be findings for the Planning Commission.
so we need, Mr. Borbin, we need a preliminarily stated compatibility finding?
That's right.
Okay. Anybody willing to go forward with something, whatever, a further work or denial or whatever? So I'm open to, the board is open to a motion.
I can try to make a motion here. I'm a little undecided, although I see Mr. Whalen has some thoughts about a motion. If you'd like to make the motion, Mr. Whalen, I'd step back.
I'm only in thought process, Mr. Olson. Please be my guest.
I thought I was reading that on your forehead, but I can see it was a different element there. So,
Mr. Olson, this needs, when you think about crafting your motion, it needs to be directed toward the interests of the planning commission. You understand what I'm saying?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
So I move that we that the applicant return to us at an indefinite time and with the continuation of the design as presented with some special considerations of the roof materials and colors that we will be especially interested in as we see this on the next time. I think that we also would expect to see these windows inset to the greatest degree possible. And I'm open to if somebody else would add something to that before I close it out, I'm open to that.
If I may, I'll second that under discussion. If Mr. Olson, you would add that all detailing to be, where possible, all detailing to be of high quality, Spanish style, complementing the original building. And also that I think in your opening, you should say that it's not an indefinite continuance, but it's a continuance to the planning commission.
Thank you for that correction. I'll make that. I think we should also add to this is that we are influenced by the promise of the building being an interim building in the approximately 5 years.
Mhm.
I think more like 10 years.
Yeah, more like 10. I don't, Mr. Olson, I wouldn't recommend putting a date on that.
Yeah.
Can we just say temporary?
I did say that our decision was influenced on the promise that this was an interim building.
Can we stop right there?
Yes, I can stop there.
Okay. Mr. Whelan,
I might propose an addition that it seems, for the benefit of the Planning Commission, like a reasonable proposal for a temporary building in terms of its site and design.
Is the maker of the motion okay with that addition?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and the seconder is also. And Mr. Olson, you need to read into your motion that this is, and be careful with your wording here, Mr. Olson. I would say conceptual project compatibility finding.
Would you say that again, Mr. Six? How you would want me to frame that? I'm not sure I understand.
Use the word that conceptually the project meets the compatibility findings.
I will do that. In concept, the project is consistent with the design guidelines. In concept, it's compatible with the architectural character of the city and its neighborhood. And its approximate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale is appropriate. That's the end of my motion. And at some point, assuming we have your approval as a second, I'd like to hear it read.
Yes, Mr. Olson, you have 3 more findings to make. On the
Somehow,
board.
I thought Mr. Rowan had said that we only were going to have the 3, but I think I misunderstood it. So the project is sensitive to adjacent landmarks. In concept, the project is sensitive to the adjacent landmark and historic resources. The public views of the ocean and mountains are not interfered with, and the use of open space and landscaping is appropriate.
I will second that under discussion if we could get help from staff. Is the airport considered a landmark at this point? Well, yes, the old building. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Olson, can we back up to the findings?
Yes. We'll need help from staff. There we go.
I would suggest we add to number 4 that it is in concept sensitive to adjacent landmarks, given the context of being temporary. That,
Okay, what if I tried this? As a temporary structure, it is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historical resources.
all right, very good. I'll go along with that. I second that. With that, can we read the motion back?
Yes, so the motion is to continue the project indefinitely to the Planning Commission with the following comments. Number 1, consider the roof materials and colors at the next meeting. Number 2, provide windows that are inset to the greatest degree possible. Number 3, all detailing shall be of high quality Spanish style, complementing the original building. Number 4, the board is influenced by the promise that the building will be interim. It is a reasonable proposal for a temporary building in terms of site and design. And number 5, the board made preliminary comments regarding the compatibility analysis findings.
Does that sound good to you?
So on those findings, is it not possible to word them as we've outlined them?
Yeah, I can go ahead and read them. So number 1, in concept, the design of the project is consistent with design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city. Number 2, in concept, the design of the project is compatible with desirable architectural qualities and characteristics of Santa Barbara. and the particular neighborhood. Number 3, the approximate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale of the project is appropriate. Number 4, the temporary structure is sensitive to adjacent landmarks or other nearby historic resources. Number 5, the project is sensitive to scenic public vistas. And lastly, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping.
Mr. Olson,
Yes,
can we say that item 6 is just not applicable? Open space and landscape. There's no landscape in this, so we just say not applicable.
I'm willing to say that if it's, that we find the item number 6 is not applicable.
Yes.
Can you change that, Mary?
Yes.
And I agree with that. Second. So we have a motion on the floor.
Well, I'd like to have it read.
So number 6, the open space and landscaping is not applicable to this project.
I mean the whole motion.
Okay. So the motion was to continue indefinitely to the Planning Commission with the following comments. Number 1, consider the roof materials and colors. Number 2, provide windows that are inset to the greatest degree possible. Number 3, all detailing. Give me 1 second. Number 3, all detailing shall be of high quality Spanish style, complementing the original building. Number 4, the board is influenced by the promise that the building will be interim. It is a reasonable proposal for a temporary building in terms of site and design. Number 5, the board makes preliminary comments regarding the compatibility analysis findings as follows. Number 1, in concept, the design of the project is consistent with design guidelines applicable.
I'm satisfied now. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, so I can take the roll call vote and I'll start with Vice Chair 6.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes,
Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you, folks. And thank you, applicants.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving on to item number 220, North La Cumbra Road. This is a one-time concept review. This project consists of a demolition of all existing commercial buildings on site and construction of a new 48-unit multifamily residential development. All units would be deed restricted to low and very low income tenants as 100% affordable development under the state's density bonus program. Unlimited density is allowable, along with exceeding the height limitation of the zone at 45 feet. The project is proposed at a density of 38.71 units per acre with a maximum of approximately 53 feet. Also proposed are 76 vehicle parking spaces, including 12 designated for guest parking and 48 bicycle parking spaces. Partially subterranean garage are proposed for residential parking with 3 stories of residential development above the garage. Preliminary housing application SB 330 is approved and valid until November 13th, 2021. And no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines: Upper State Street design guidelines. So is our staff does.
Thank you, Vice. Thank you, Vice Chair Six. At this time, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Swanson, who is the planner for this project, to give an introduction to the project and sort of help you digest some of that project description. It was quite there are quite a few things in there that would be helpful for you to understand. Thank you.
There are. Welcome, Ms. Swanson.
Hello. So like Christina said, I am Stephanie Swanson. I am the planner for this project. And under state law, they are allowed up to 33 feet of additional height. So they are not using all of that height, obviously. And they are allowed up to 4 incentives, concessions, waivers. There are lots of different words for this. At this point, they are not formally requesting any, but that may change as they actually finalize their project before they submit a formal application. So this is just their one-time concept review. It's a pre-application. So this does not count towards the 5 meeting maximum under, is that SB 330? And I'm here for any questions you have. They're also allowed unlimited density because of their location next to, or not next to, but near a transit station. And so the 48 units that they're proposing is allowable. I did also get confirmation from the city attorney's office about what exactly is under ABR's purview. And so there are 3 things that city attorney was very explicit on that you cannot discuss, comment on, approve or disapprove the project on based on parking, height, or the number of units and the overall density proposed. But you can discuss neighborhood compatibility, size and overall mass except height, overall aesthetics and design details, open yard, and site circulation. So if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you. That last part was very helpful. All right, seeing that our applicants are here, are you prepared to make a presentation? Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon, Vice Chair Six and board members. My name is Rob Fredericks. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara. And with me today, I have our project architect, Christine Perrone from the Cornell Collective, and Rob Fowler, our landscape architect, and my 2 colleagues, Skip Szymanski, our Chief Operating Officer, and Dale Azam, our Director of Property Development and Administration. And just to tee this off, I wanted to just say, why are we doing this in here? As we all know, California suffers from a deficit of affordable housing. There's 1.2 million affordable housing units needed statewide, and Santa Barbara is also suffering from a lack of affordable housing that's needed. And there's not a lot of available land for producing the housing that's needed. So we have to take what we can get. And we came across this site that we think is perfect given the location for the school district, shopping and businesses and transit corridor, that this would be a perfect site for family housing that's affordable to low income households, primarily families with children. In fact, on our Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher waiting list, we have over 1,600 families with children that need affordable housing desperately today. And according to the last Housing Element update, 63% of the households in Santa Barbara are categorized as either very low or extremely low income households. So that's why we're doing this. And last point before I turn it over to Ms. Perrone is that it is very important to the Housing Authority to always have our developments that we take through the entitlement process to ultimately be value add to the neighborhood and the greater Santa Barbara community. So Ms. Perrone, take it away.
Thank you, Rob. I'll just jump right in. And Mr. Bolton, can you zoom in on that aerial? I just want to get everybody oriented to where we are. Thank you. So we've outlined the site there, and State Street is on the bottom of the aerial, and La Cumbre then goes midway perfect. And I think what I want to point out is this is a transitional neighborhood. So to the bottom side of the page is 2-story block apartments. And then you can see we transition to single family within, really across this site. So we were very sensitive in our design of this project to be aware of that, like transitioning between multifamily and single family. And then you can see to the right of the project site is 1-story skilled nursing facility. And I think it's important to point that out because of how it has a large hedge around that we will maintain between us and it, and how our 3rd story relates to it. So it's really important for you to get a sense of that right now. Thank you. Can we skip back to the photos, please? And let's start in the lower right side, and we're going to go counterclockwise. So on the upper photo is looking at that skilled nursing facility. You see that roof line, and then on the left side is the site. You can barely see anything of the 1-story office buildings there. And then the other photo kind of shows this, the type of apartment buildings that are adjacent to the site. Can we zoom out and then go to the bottom left? Bottom left is here at Villa Lucero and La Cumbre, looking both directions. So the bottom photo is looking at the site, the corner of the site, and then the other one is looking the other direction at the other corner. Please, yes, scroll up. And this is mid-block, that photo, that stop right there with the red car. This is an important photo because you can see the berming. There's a significant amount of berming on this site between La Cumbre and where the site actually, where we will be and where the existing offices are. It's at least with the offices now, it varies, but it's probably 4 feet to 18 feet of berming. And then if we scroll on up, here we start to get into the single family. And that upper photo is really important as an inspiration photo for us, the red farmhouse. I fell in love with that, and I used that as an inspiration piece for this project to be more farmhouse oriented, more rural in character based on this and some of the other adjacent buildings. I'm going to skip the internal photos in the interest of time, but we can always go back. So let's please go to the project plans. Thank you. Let's go to sheet 4, please, the site plan. And zoom in, please. And as you can kind of pick up from those site photos, an important thing to understand about this site, it looks flat here. The upper left corner is at about 192 elevation. The lower right corner is at about 214 elevation. There's about up to over 20 feet of grade change across the site. And that's important. It's a tremendous opportunity. And you can see that's what we're doing here. We're semi-subterranean garage parking. So we are using this grade to our advantage to put the parking as discreetly as possible on site. It's important to note that with state law, we are not required to provide any parking, but given the neighborhood and being good neighbors that the housing authority is, we are providing a substantial amount of parking in a subterranean garage. And in order to be ease of use, we're providing that guest parking. So it's on a surface lot. You see that off of Villa Lucero, so that the guests can easily see it and park there. And that is providing the required amount of guest parking for the site. So you can see this is a courtyard style housing project, which was important. It's on a podium, partially on a podium and partially on grade, with a significant amount of play area and outdoor space. Since it's a family-oriented project, that was certainly very important. And the other thing to really pay attention to here is how far set back these buildings are. If you see on the lower left, That's the closest one. It's 20 feet to the back of sidewalk. And then as we get taller, because of the grade change, you can see we push the buildings back more. So those are 35 to 40 feet back from the back of sidewalk. So in our elevations, it looks like the buildings are looming, but in fact, they are significantly stepped back. The other thing you'll see is on the upper northern part of this site, adjacent to that single family neighborhood, we dropped down to 1 stories and 2 stories on this podium to reflect that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next sheet, please. And here you can kind of get a sense of that subterranean, semi-subterranean garage. And it was important to us to locate the community center and the lobby central to the project, the heart of the project, and also to engage La Cumbre, not to be up on a burned plinth and never touch that street. So that's why we have that lobby that goes all the way down to La Cumbre and engages that streetscape, which I think is actually an improvement from where it was before, where the this site was divorced from La Cumbre. And so that's those purple elements on the left side, and you can see the lobby enters at grade and goes up to the site that's higher up. Let's go ahead to the next page, please. And so here you can see the second story starts to erode a little bit, especially up there on the northern side where we have roof lines. So there's only 1-story buildings relative to the streetscape and those single family residences on that side of the project. And then we really pull back the 3rd floor internal to the site and wrap it around that. It's a kind of, I call it a K-shaped site, wrap it around that angle. And so it is non-impactful, except, yeah. So let's go ahead to the next sheet, please. And let's go ahead and zoom in to start on the upper left. I want to talk about the inspiration. And so there's that red farmhouse. The scale of it, it's adorable, but the scale doesn't quite meet what we're trying to accomplish. So I went to more of a red barn look for the lobby. That's the main, the focal feature. And I grew up in Ohio, so that barn on top of the stone foundation is something I know very well. It's in the lower right corner there. That is Ohio right there. And then you'll see some slightly more modern interpretations of that shown here. And can we just pan over to the sketch? And so that's the inspiration for this sketch, is a kind of a red barn on a stone foundation, slightly modern. These will be younger families. We think this will do well with slightly more modern detailing. And I'm gonna just say this right now, right now I'm showing it without muttons and just very glassy. That's in flux, and certainly want your input on it. But I do think a slightly modern take on this will be a good, successful approach. So there you see the kind of allusion to a stone foundation, the red barn, and some of the other roof forms that are very much a farmhouse style. Let's zoom out, please. And then let's just go ahead and zoom to the sketch, the lower sketch. Also, very kind of like a contemporary farmhouse. That could be the roofing could be a standing seam metal. That could be metal siding, or maybe it's gray, weathered wood siding, to be determined, but kind of get some texture in there along with plaster. And again, these are still set back significantly. And I think it's important to notice here where our grade change isn't significant, how this is really just a 2-story building, 2- and 3-story building. And let's zoom over to those inspiration photos, please. And some are actual, real industrial buildings of farmhouse styles, and some are, as you can see, modern interpretations of that. Let's go ahead and go to the next page, please. I'm going to quickly go through this. So that upper sketch is without all of the landscaping that Rob Fowler is going to show you a much nicer sketch, because this elevation is really going to be about this 20, 30, 40 feet deep of landscaping. That is really what this elevation is going to be about. And I just want to show you that how we do step down over on the left side with a smaller piece of architecture. And let's scroll down, please. And then this is from Villa Lucero. You know, maybe reintroduce some of that red siding. And let's go to the next sheet, please.
Ms. Perone, give your landscaper some time.
A few minutes. Yeah, that's what I'm wrapping up. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I won't zoom in, but please note, we have used the same level of care as we wrap around the building on the back sides for the architectural identity. And also, I think it's important to note the height, although we are allowed to have it by state law, it's really driven because of the podium and the berming that has happened. If you look at the actual heights of the buildings taken from the courtyard level, they are standard level. We would have met the requirements. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Fowler. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. So what I wanted to point out is as you drive on La Cumbre and you're heading toward the mountains, you see that kind of nice, lush look that exists there now. And that is something we took off from, and that's a look that we're trying to maintain as much as possible. There's a handful of existing jacarandas. And so you can see from my plans that there's an intent to keep some of the more mature jacarandas on there. And then the intent is to add to it. So I think what we're after here is to kind of have more of a lush landscape look that's more emblematic of that neighborhood. And as opposed to maybe having kind of that agave cactus look that we see with some of the projects that are right down on State Street. So we're trying to kind of have that green belt flavor to them. But as you see, when I say lush, I'm still compelled and bound by making sure that the project meets the water use mandates. And so it will meet WELO. And also, as far as the plant palette that I'm showing, what I'm showing is far more extensive than what I plan on using. I will simplify that as I move along on this project and get to more final construction drawings on this project. So again, as far as the elevation, can we looking at that right now? Real simply, on the corner, up in the corner, you see what's happening with the landscape is that we've incorporated a series of walls that terrace down, and we've tried to really connect this kind of upper level of Villa Lucero and try to connect the architecture and the project in a very limited way down to La Cumbre. So when you see the landscaping, what you'll see in that elevation is that there's really an intent to thoroughly screen a predominant amount of the elevation along that street. But then what I'm doing is I'm letting that one key piece of architecture, the community center, kind of read through and give you that connection to La Cumbre without, and at the same time, trying to really have the rest of the project be more quiet and be kind of hidden behind a lot more lush landscaping. So
all right.
Go ahead.
Any last words?
No, I think that pretty much kind of covers all my key pieces. So thank you very much.
Ms. Perone, last words? All right. Thanks for a good and timely presentation. With that, we will open public comment on this item. If there's anybody who wishes to speak on this item, this specific item, this is your time with further instruction from the staff. I might add, go ahead, Ms. McGuire.
I was just going to say my standard spiel of thanking you, Vice Chair, and opening up public comment. I do see somebody has raised their hand. Did you have something else, Vice Chair?
Well, I wanted to remind the public that to remember what our limitations, the AVR's limitations on our purview are here. and to, if there are comments, to focus it on those things that are within our purview, mostly design and neighborhood compatibility and organization of the parts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. With that, if there's any members of the public who would like to speak on this item, please click on the raise lower your hand icon in the GoToWebinar control panel. I see Lucille Boss has raised their hand, and I will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Ms. Boss, you're self-muted. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lucille Boss, and I am the current chair of the Housing Authority Commission. I'm here this afternoon to speak in support of the project proposed at 220 North LaCoumbra Road. First, I hope it's safe to assume we all know there is a great need for affordable housing in our community. And the Housing Authority has an excellent reputation for providing affordable housing to community members in need. And this project, designed for families who earn below the area median income, is no different. The Housing Authority also works closely with local experts and community groups to ensure buildings fit into the neighborhood and enhance the community. In this case, I also want to speak personally, based on having worked in this neighborhood. For years, the bus dropped me off at Steed and LaCoumbra, and as I walked up LaCoumbra to my office, I always admired the character of this neighborhood. I particularly appreciated the nod to the farmhouse style. I grew up in a home with the stone base and red paneling, surrounded by beautiful native plants. This project would allow dozens of local families to have those same memories for decades to come, and most importantly, would provide access to affordable housing and pathways to self-sufficiency. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I did see one member of the public flickered on their chat, they're raising their hand button. Just wanted to double check to make sure that they did not want to speak on this item. Okay, I don't see that any other member of the public has raised their hand indicating that they would like to speak on this item. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina, and board members. We did receive written correspondence from Jan Ziegler and Mark Walker, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Back to you.
So thank you, Mary, and thank you, Vice Chair Six. And actually, I do see a member of the public has raised their hand. Maxwell Rosenberg, I am going to, since you should unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Hello, my name is Max Rosenberg, and I'm the next unit up from that red barn. I'm the HOA president at Amber Gardens, which is 280 through 288 LaCoumbra. And I just want to thank you for your design and your ideas for this project. Our initial concern as an association was the height, but how it's being addressed by having the taper on the front, on the street, and the landscaping. To say that I'm pleasantly surprised and fully in support of this as a neighbor, I am greatly appreciative of the concerns that were made during the design element to incorporate that style of our next door neighbor to the south, that red barn home. I've lived in this neighborhood for 3 years, and many of my friends, that is a landmark, and that really is a geographic spot that everybody knows when they come up LaCoumbra. My initial concern was that you guys were going to exceed the height and it was going to be a square building. I'm very, very happy to see this design. I really like the incorporation of the subterranean parking. And yes, that berm is very high right there. And that looks like a very appropriate project for this neighborhood. I cannot be happier with the initial design of this right now. And I want to thank all of you for your hard work in trying to incorporate that look. It is very important that it tapers into a single level in this neighborhood just north of us. And I really think that the lushness of this area and that landscaping, the way you guys have it, at least at the initial level, is beautiful. And thank you for all of your hard work on this.
Thank you.
That is all.
Thank you,
for your
Vice Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Six. At this time, I don't see any other members of the public have raised their hand to speak on this item.
All right, and we already went through the written correspondence, so we'll bring it back to the board for questions. Does anybody want to start? Mr. Whelan.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Ms. Perroni, a few questions. On the north elevation, if you could wait a moment for that to be called up. I'm sorry, I don't know which sheet that is. There appear to be a series of either openings or recesses on the parking garage. Which are they? Is the garage mechanically ventilated or is it naturally ventilated?
Great question, Mr. Whelan. To be determined. You know, I was studying maybe some openings to make it naturally ventilated, and hope, you know, possibly breaking up that elevation, but it's too soon. So any thoughts you have on that would be appreciated.
All right, I'll move on to my other questions. So if I understand it, there is a single entry for residents at the street level, and that's on Colina, I believe, off of the visit parking.
The residential entry is off of La Cumbra into the semi-subterranean garage. And then what we did is we provided additional parking for guests off of Via Lucero, that's surface parking. Much more visually apparent, easy for a guest to see and know, oh, I go park there. Exactly.
And the guests, and how would the guests enter the complex from the parking?
That is all at the same grade. So that is all at about 212. So it's all pretty level right there.
All right. So all of your inspiration examples were vertical board. Do you see that encompassing the entire complex at this point?
I think it's going to be a mix of plaster, vertical board, metal siding, perhaps. I think we all are interested in using standing seam metal roof. Very farmhouse, but a little bit of a mixture of materials.
Thank you. One small question. It appears that all of the units are accessed from internal entries, although they aren't indicated. Are the double doors that are indicated, are those for little Juliet balcony type things?
Thank you for asking that question. We hadn't gotten to developing the internals of the site. Yes, all the entries are off of the internal courtyard. The double doors you see are to people's backyards, and then on upper levels, they would perhaps have decks.
All right.
So a lot of private outdoor space.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. My last question is sort of reiterates it. So if I understand the plan, there's really only one place for residents to enter, and that's off of La Cumbre through the lobby and up, right?
No, you could go that way. If you were going to Target over there on State Street and walking home, you could walk down and enter through the lobby, or you could turn onto Via Lucero and walk up that path right there, exactly, and go onto the site.
All right, that's all the questions I have, Vice Chair Six. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Whelan. Anybody else? Who's next?
Yes. my question is about the landscaping. Is there a landscaping plan that encompasses the interior of the project?
No, there is not at this time. We have not developed the interior part of the project yet, the hardscape or the landscape for that.
So my question might be, will you give some consideration for providing small, like landscape vegetable plots for people growing gardens and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. That's part of the programming that I'm going to huddle up with the Housing Authority folks and look at doing that. But I've done a lot of affordable housing projects, and that's been a big part of the affordable housing projects that I've done in the past.
All right, thank you. And this is a question for Ms. Barone. As far as that landscaping interior is concerned, would you consider trying to figure out ways to recycle water from the project itself to use, for instance, in the laundry room, water from the laundry room and that sort of thing to help with the scarcity of water?
Absolutely. Love that.
Let's see if I have other questions. That's all my questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Olson. Who else?
I have a question. Can we go to the site plan, please? And on the lower right-hand corner, are those those dashed lines, are those the setback lines? Or is the building crossing into a setback?
The setbacks in this area are, gosh, I have to think about it. It's 10 feet and 20 feet, depending on the height. And that piece that looks like it's encroaching is allowed within that zone. Yeah.
Okay.
The 3-story house.
Okay, gotcha. And then can we go to the, I guess the precedent images or the inspiration images? So the detailing differences between like the more modern barns and the more traditional up above barns, well, is the overhang. Do you see keeping a short overhang, or do you see keeping more of a couple foot overhang, or what is your thoughts on that?
It would often be shorter, except for where it's needed for solar exposure. So if it's going to function, we're going to do an overhang. So yes, but they tend to be crisp. The modern takes overall, if you set aside solar needs, tend to be kind of crisper, more tailored. And yes, that's where we would go.
Okay. And then have you considered corrugated metal besides standing seam?
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Those are my questions for now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Black?
I don't really have any questions right now.
Okay, I have a few. Surprise. If we go to the street photos existing, does the project require that, how many of those existing street trees are planned to remain, or do they all have to be removed and replant and replaced?
There's, if you look on the elevation, and I've identified, there's 3 that are capable of keeping. The one closest to the garage entry may be problematic because of the sight line coming in and out of that garage, but certainly the 2 closest to Villa Lucero are easy to kind of keep, and they're kind of close to the sidewalk, so I don't see any problem with that.
Okay. And then as long as we're here, Mr. Fowler, I see what seems to be indication of what do they call it? A green wall, the squares. Is that actually a living green wall, or are you going to expose materials there? I see a clash between, you know, this romantic stone barnyard base and this what's intended for the greenery here.
I think the intent there was to put vines on trellis structures at that particular point, but that is, you know, detailing how much stone we use and what is kind of vines on trellises still kind of in the works.
So it's kind of early yet on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Perron, can you explain if we go to the overall site plan, main level, can you explain the difference between I think there was a parking lot, raised parking lot existing up at the north property. Are you going beyond, or what is your new development relative to the existing development?
I think what you're asking is about the grade change that happens on the north side. Is that correct?
The plan dimension between, you definitely have a garage wall there at 10 feet away. Is there a retaining wall on the existing site that's at that distance, or radically different?
It is a big change in grade there that is retained. Can we go to the site photos? That might help.
Yeah, there's a big wall there.
So is the wall, is the old wall about where the new wall is going to be?
It's pretty darn close. I think we are couple feet closer.
Okay, thank you. And likewise, with the La Cumbre elevation of that same area, are you encroaching further than where the existing building and retaining walls that create that parking lot along La Cumbre are? Are you going closer?
It is all going slightly closer. Yes, but it's within. Sorry, I'm looking at it right now, so I can tell you with some level of commitment here. Yeah, so it's a few feet closer there than where it had. Yeah.
Then could we go back to the site plan? Am I to understand that you are? Go ahead.
No,
Did I
go ahead.
interrupt?
No, go ahead.
My preliminary studies of the existing survey and your numbers here, are you actually retaining in the adjacent to the care facility? Are you actually going down? That white that forms the arms of the K.
The care facility is, I'm estimating it at about 213, maybe 214 finished floor, and we'll be at about 212 finished floor, close to where it had been. So there's existing retaining walls that I'm sure we'll have to rebuild, but it's about a 2 feet difference. So they're a little higher than us.
So, but on your site, you're not digging down any significance from the existing elevation on that eastern lines, correct?
No. If anything, there's a drive on the northern end. There's a drive that goes down.
I get it.
Yeah, and we'll be back. Yeah.
Okay. I'm hoping you're not anticipating doing story poles here.
No, we were not.
Okay, thanks.
Especially
Um,
I think the state law would govern that we are allowed this height. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then one more, let's see. Oh, just a hiccup that I saw. You're introducing a transformer at the very upper left-hand corner. And we've had quite a few issues with other projects not being able to screen that darn thing because of clearances. I noticed that Mr. Fowler did solve the problem by not providing a transformer at all. So
That was my fault. That was my fault. I did not give that to him.
Is there a chance that that transformer could be flipped in back of your first raised planter there to? I think that leads into a comment, but I just wanted to note that. All right, I think I'm done with my questions. So is anybody ready for comments? Mr. Olson.
Yes, when I put my developer cap on, I see the opportunity here that is being made available. And I think the development that's been made to this point, the conceptual development is quite good. I'm encouraged by it. I think this is the right place and the right time for this. I do notice that there is a neighborhood objection to the parking issues that it presents, and that is not within our purview. I'm quite encouraged with this and support it at this stage thoroughly.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Who else? Mr. Black.
Just from what I've seen, I think architecturally, the buildings as they're presented are just very charming. I love that farmhouse, that sort of modern farmhouse look that Christine spoke of. I just think it's going to be unique to the neighborhood, unique to Santa Barbara, and I just think from what I see, it's very handsome. As far as, I think it's going to be a challenge to try to get, residential, vegetable gardens on a site. I didn't see a lot of green space. I like the way the project presents itself to the street relative to the amount of landscape along La Cumbre. I think that's going to be a real plus. I see some of the green space is going to be devoted to play areas, which, as it should be. Perhaps just the use of fruit trees and what have you might be an opportunity to provide some edibles throughout the project as well. And I'm sure Rob will do a good job doing that. So that's all I had to say about it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Whelan?
Sure, thank you, Vice Chair Six. Can we go to the site plan that shows the streets, please? I know that La Cumbre is a heavily trafficked street, and the traffic moves at quite a clip that might challenge the rate. And I would like to see or hear the respondent react to aligning the garage with Maricopa. I have a feeling that when cars exit the garage and make a left turn, it can be quite confusing for the traffic there. I happened to be up there at about 10 o'clock this morning, 10 o'clock, and there is a lot of traffic in really big cars moving really fast. I would like to see that issue studied and addressed. The mass of the parking plinth on La Cumbre, it seems to show up more in the landscape plan than the elevations, but that's going to be a big consideration. And I would like to see the applicant study facing more of that with the stone, especially perhaps around the garage or some places that aren't quite the Garden of Babylon that the landscape plan presents. The garage plan, if Mr. Bolton can find that one and quickly to it, it looks rather confusing. One must transit all the way over to the corner after one parks your car to get to the lobby. And then it also appears that the van and ACT spaces have a very convoluted route to get back to their associated spaces. Perhaps some revisiting or reanalysis of the parking structure could ease this plan. And again, at the garage, this is quite a bit of displacement, and it's difficult for me to imagine that any of the trees or landscape are going to be preserved. Perhaps some of them on La Cumbre, but there's quite a large stand of Italian cypress and pine and oak on the north that it seems to me inconceivable that to build this garage, you're not going to have to replace or remove all of those very mature trees, which provide a wonderful screen from those buildings adjacent. And related to that, you can see that the garage touches the parcel line on the east. And again, it's hard for me to believe that you won't have to remove that huge, beautiful, lush hedge on the east to build the structure, but you can prove that to me later on. And then tied to that, all of the sections, and if Mr. Bolt can turn to those, I would like to see those sections include the adjacent properties. And this is especially true on the east. These are the elevations, Mr. Bolton, if you could find the sections, because that long-term care facility, the healthcare facility to the east is really, really close to the lot line. And we have 3 stories that are somewhat depressed from that same level, but they're really going to tower over that building. And if you lose that hedge, there's really a compatibility issue that I think needs to be addressed. The La Cumbre elevation is a fine start in its modularization. I would like to see these other elevations, especially those of the eastern wings, reflect that character. They're more monolithic in design, at least the proposal now, some variation in the windows, the sizes of them as they go up the floor. You can see my point here. The La Cumbre elevation, the west elevation, is much more broken up and diversified than the eastern one, and even the northern one to some degree. I'm sure we'll see some more landscape concepts to the courtyard. It occurs to me that if the, so far the highly praised La Cumbre elevation, if some of those units were moved a little farther out to the west, it would enhance the internal courtyard, which in view that many of these units are 1 bedroom or they're very modest spaces, the central shared spaces are going to become very, very important to the residents. And I'm hoping for some internal spaces, landscaped, shared resident spaces that are befitting these limited interior spaces of residents. And to that end, it seems to me the guest parking occupies a really valuable space that could be incorporated, and the guest parking moved a little farther to the east, closer to the adjacent building. And I think that's all the comments I have. Thank you, Vice Chair Six.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I just
comment?
have a couple. I think the site circulation is working well, having the internal courtyard be the access point for entering all the units. I think that with the farmhouse or rural modern barn style that you're recommending or moving towards, I think it's going to be really important what materials you're using. And it comes down to detailing and proportions, which I'm sure you're aware of. I think that the stucco might not fit into that scheme, the farmhouse scheme. So maybe more of a mixture of the metal and the wood. And I do agree with Mr. Whalen on the location of entering the garage, if that could be studied or if that could be studied. And I think it's actually working really well for the site, and it steps back well in proportions. The massing, I think the massing's working well. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. In my own comments, I think it is a very successful massing and site plan and arrangement of the parts. I think you've taken advantage of the particulars of the site it's very appropriate. I think it's a great start here. I would be interested to know what traffic would have to say about moving a garage entry. I think that's a very interesting idea, and would be be very interested to hear what traffic has to say about how, if that helps and so forth. So I would support studying that, but I certainly would rely on the traffic experts to support or not support that idea. Interesting thing that Mr. Whalen said about the northern La Cumbre. You maybe Ms. Perron, that there is a slight movement toward the street to get more a courtyard. It might be an interesting compromise to find that sweet spot. I think that the only exception I have to the massing is the very lower right-hand unit along Via Lucero goes right up to 3 stories right away. And if we could go, let's see, if we could go to the second floor plan. No, the third floor plan. Seems to me that, and I know, Ms. Perron, it would wreck your verticality for that third story unit up along that sole third story unit up along La Cumbre, but it seems to me that, taking that third story from the corner, the southwest corner, and moving it over somewhere else would help. I think there's just too much impact at the 3 stories right there at Via Lucero. Somewhere, I don't mean to say that's the only solution, but I'm concerned about that massing right there. I think that the idea of the openings in the garage are great. I think that they shouldn't be clear. They should have some significant screening or lattice work. There's nothing worse than, living in a residence and looking up at the underside of what a parking garage looks like with fire sprinklers and so forth. I also think, that one of the important livabilities of the central plazas are the openings you've provided between units. And I would be very careful when you plant big trees that, you can get views. You're not shut down and you can get views out from these enclosed spaces. So I'd be very careful with my placement of taller trees and so forth. I think that Mr. Whelan's comment on not losing the hedge is very vital. So I'd reinforce that. I think the style is great. I'm really excited about the style chosen. I would not want to go too modern with it, however. I think it's going to be more successful to err on the more traditional style than a crisp modern. Maybe the crisp modern is used in the back or, only occasionally for variations, but I think that I would err on the more traditional side to give it that charm. Also mentioned looking forward to the resolve of planting versus stone at this La Cumbre base. And as I mentioned before, I think it's important to resolve the transformer and its screening and clearances early on here. And metal roof, I'm not, I'm happy with that. I think, again, maybe there's a variation in this. I won't go there. That's too far. What else did I wanted to say? We're just wondering if we flip up to, or just one more thing is flip up to the living, the ground floor, the living level. Again, at those northern La Cumbre units, is there a way to open the railing along the planting rectangles on the edge of the plinth? There'd be opportunities to have those as open, very light railings so that you don't get the full height of the plinth in those areas. There might be an opportunity there to have the real to lighten the architecture there and have the railings go away in the planting. Other than that, I think it's a very exciting project and it's the right place, the right time, and a very sensitive design. So I think we're here to make and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of weak on these things. I think we're going to commission on this.
This will not have planning. I'm sorry, Vice Chair 6, to interrupt. This will not need to go to Planning Commission. No discretionary approvals are required under state law. So this will, I believe, is Stephanie still on? You'll be the deciding entity.
So Stephanie, where do we go from here?
Okay, yes, that is correct. This is not going to go to planning commission. This is not going to go to staff hearing officer. It really will just be design review for in regards to any kind of approvals.
Okay, so if anybody senses that I'm not totally aligned with the rest of you, I will go ahead and make a motion for an indefinite continuance with the following comments: that the project site planning, massing, arrangement of the parts are very good and acceptable. The overall massing and the arrangement of those masses is very sensitive to the surrounding, given that the structures along La Cumbre are significantly set back in areas from the street, that 1 and 2 stories are introduced at the northwest corner to make a transition to the existing residential scale neighborhood. That the site circulation to and from the project, either pedestrian wise or vehicular wise, is well thought out. The exception to that is that that the applicant should consult with city traffic in regards to introducing the main parking garage aligned with Maricopa to see if that is a better traffic solution. That as previously said, the massing is successful, with one exception, that one board member, and chime in if there's more, feels that the very southeast corner 3-story structure should be restudied to have more transition to more 2 and 1 story, well, just 2-story at Villa Cerro and at the neighbor to the east. That the applicant, I don't think I mentioned this already, that the applicant should early on find good location and screening of the main electrical transformer. Oh, and I didn't mention that the board would be interested in seeing a balance between the setbacks from the street of northern La Cumbre units, not with the size and available use space in the courtyard. That the architecture leading from the example of the barn-like existing structure along La Cumbre is very exciting, and look forward to seeing a balance between contemporary and traditional expressions of that style. I think that's all I can think of. Is there anybody else who would like to add to that, second it, and add to it under discussion? Mr. Whelan.
Just one small addition, Vice Chair Six, that the massing and fenestration on La Cumbre be reflected in the eastern wing as well.
Yeah.
That is the variation of massing and fenestration, building upon your point, which I support, reducing the southeast corner from 2 to 3 stories. Again, the variation in massing and fenestration all along that unit.
So you want to shorten that statement up for Mary's benefit?
That the massing and fenestration illustrated on La Cumbre be reflected in the eastern unit as well.
Eastern elevation.
Yes, the eastern block of units.
Yeah, all right.
Perhaps more accurately, the diversity of massing and fenestration on La Cumbre be reflected as well in the eastern block units.
All right, thank you. I think that's clear. So do I have a seconder?
Second.
Second, Mr. Olson. So may we hear the motion read for our application?
Sure. So the comments I have are number 1, the project site planning, massing, and arrangement of parts is acceptable. Number 2, the overall massing and the arrangement of masses is in line with the surrounding structures, given that the structure along La Cumbre is significantly set back from the street. 1 and 2 stories are introduced at the northwest corner and transition to the presidential scale of the neighborhood. Number 3, the site circulation is well thought out. The applicant should consult with the city to find a better traffic solution. Number 4, diversity.
Stop. Mary, stop there. And not a better solution. What do I, to see if alignment with the Maricopa provides a better.
Yes.
Okay. So I have the applicant should consult with the city to see if alignment with Maricopa provides a better traffic solution.
The city traffic department.
Okay. Number 4, comment number 4 I have is that the diversity of massing and fenestration illustrated on La Cumbre be reflected on the eastern block of units as well. Number 5, the applicant should find a good location and provide screening for the main electrical transformer. Number 6, the board would be interested in seeing a balance between the setbacks from the street at North La Cumbre units with the size of available spaces in the courtyard. Number 7, the architecture, which is leading from example of the barn-like existing structures along La Cumbre, is very exciting, and the board looks forward to seeing a balance between contemporary and traditional expressions of that style.
Mm-hmm. Can I add one more, that the board supports real openings in the north and northwest portions of the garage but they be of some semi-transparent nature. Is that okay with the seconder? Mr. Olson?
Second, yes.
All right. Okay, so we have Chris, I see Ms. McGuire. Where did we screw up?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. You guys are doing a great job. It's not that. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. Partially, this
Okay.
is my fault. I think we had a one-time concept review a few weeks ago, and I steered all of you guys in the wrong direction. You don't need a motion, you just need comments. So you don't need to ask the seconder if the seconder agrees and the first person. The reason why is because at this conceptual level, some of the board members could feel, this, and other board members can feel that, and it could make it very difficult to have a motion where we have split sort of thinking. So at this time, it's more appropriate to just
Okay.
there's no motion, just comments, which Vice Chair Six, you have done a nice job of summarizing.
So, but wait. So can we, Mary, can we say that the following comments are generally agreed to by the majority of the board members, and then list those? And then if anybody else would like to add some comments of their own, please feel free.
Yes, I would like to add my comment about consideration of using some of the interior landscaping space for gardens that, like vegetable gardens. I don't think it needs to be there doesn't have to be a lot devoted to that, but it becomes a teaching instrument for the young people who will be here on this, in this project. And I think the other comment I had made was to consider recycling some of the water from the project in use for the landscaping.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olson. Anybody else? Okay, so I think we have we have your comments, Ms. Perrone and Mr. Fowler.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on. Number three is 210 South Voluntario Street. This is a concept review. The project consists of demolition of an existing single-family residence and garage and construction of a new multifamily residential development. A new development would include 9 rental housing units pursuant to the city's average unit size density incentive program and the state densities bonus program. And 1 unit would be designated as very low income. 8 on-site vehicles, including 1 handicap space and 5 long-term bicycle storage spaces are proposed. The parcel is zoned RM, and its general plan designation is medium density residential, 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre allowable density. The proposed density would be 36 dwelling units per acre, which is allowable with the state densities bonus program. Preliminary housing application SB 330 is approved and valid until December 6, 2021. And this no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. So ultimately, the project will require a project compatibility analysis and urban design guidelines. So is our applicant here?
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Six and Board. Heidi Jones with Susan Illich Planning and Permitting Services is here, along with our project architect, Dylan Chappelle. I will also be filling in for our landscape architect, Natira Jones, later on in our presentation. We look forward to running through our conceptual plans with you today and look forward to your comments. If staff can pull up the aerial and site photographs file that we sent, I think it will be quick and easy to run through these for context. Site location 210 South Voluntario.
Ms. Jones, I don't see your architect. Is he by phone or? I'd like to see him.
Yeah, I'll send him a message while we are running through these slides.
Vice Chair 6, is that Mr. Chappelle, Dylan?
Correct.
He's on.
I don't see his happy face.
Well, it looks like he's joined by telephone.
Got it. Thank you.
You only get to see my happy face, Mr. Six.
That's enough for
Okay.
me.
All right, so we'll run through these quickly for context. Site location. Next slide. I think these are helpful to just show the neighborhood context. This is the existing single family residence. Next slide. This is the apartment complex across the street, another 2-story apartment complex. Next slide. Another view. You can just scroll through them quickly. Thank you. This is an adjacent residence next door to the north. Another view of the residence. Walk back through the existing drive. Side yard, very exciting. The other side yard. This is another 2-story apartment complex to the south. Here's another view of that. Back to our front other side yard. There's an existing orchard in the back with some citrus trees. So yeah, I just thought that would be helpful, especially to show for future neighborhood compatibility with our architectural design. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Chappelle, who will run through the conceptual floor site elevation plans, materials, details, and then we'll come back for a landscape presentation.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome. Dylan, are you on?
Mr. Chappelle? Hello? We're not hearing you.
Mr. Chappelle, it looks like you have joined by phone. And also I see that you're green, so I'm not sure why you're not, why we can't hear you.
Can you guys, can you hear me
There you
now?
are.
Yes, there
Okay.
you go.
Sorry, you guys, I was hearing.
That's
Let me
okay,
just-
welcome.
Thank you. So, sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. Do you want to take me to the site plan?
So yeah, there you go. That's the existing site plan, just showing what we just walked through, and here's the proposed.
Yeah, so we have essentially 2 buildings. We have a 3-unit building in the front that is single story at the street, and then as it steps back, it is 2 stories. And then we have a 2-story building at the rear with parking in between. Can we go to the next page? So there you can see on the ground floor, there's 2 units at the front in the front building, and there's 1 unit towards the back in the front building. And then the back building has 3 units on the ground floor and 3 units on the top floor. There's also the trash enclosures integrated into the building at the back. Can we go to the next page? So we're presenting, I would say, somewhat of a traditional farmhouse style for both of the buildings. The front building is not that big of a building, and we thought that this design style would fit in with the neighborhood and have some little charming details to it. So this is mainly the front building. You can see there the east elevation, which faces the street. You have one front entry door facing the street. And then there's one unit that's accessed on the back and one unit that's accessed on the side. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So if you look at the east elevation of this building, one thing I want to point out is on the bottom right there, that is the trash enclosure, those gates that you see. And then that is also the elevation that kind of faces that interior parking and courtyard area. Once again, we have units on the ground floor, mainly accessed off the north elevation, and then you go up the stairs on the west elevation, and the top 3 units are accessed on the south side on the second floor. You want to go to the next slide? Heidi, did you want to talk about the landscape? Did you get a chance to talk to Natira?
I did, sure. Happy to run through it. So Mr. Black can't ask me any specific questions about this, but I will run through the proposal. So the concept here was to provide a palette that utilizes low water use, drought tolerant plants comprised of vines, trees, accent, hedges, shrubs, perennials, and grass-like plants. We do have some nice upright evergreen trees along the north and south property lines to provide some screening for the adjacent neighbors. We also have some nice amenities that are proposed for the tenants. We meet our open yard requirement, but we have a nice picnic table area, umbrella, a bench, a barbecue space, some decomposed granite features. And that's all you got. So we're open to any questions you have, unless Dylan, you want to run through your concept palette and materials quickly?
Sure. Do you want to take us back to the elevations? So we have some board and bat siding. We have some wood siding. There's some Santa Barbara sandstone veneer, and then comp shingle roofs, maybe a little bit of standing seam accent roofs over the entry awnings. We're looking mainly at like a dark bronze window and door exterior finish, and cable rail for guardrails.
Thank you. I think that completes our
All right.
presentation, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you, folks. With that, I will open public comment for comments specific to this project. So follow the instructions on the screen and further directed by the staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I do see several members of the public have logged in. If you would like to speak on this item, please click on the raise lower your hand icon. At this time, I don't see that any member of the public has clicked on that. Mary, have you received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina, and board members. We have not received written correspondence for this item. Back to you.
All right, that being the fact, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Can I have all the board members on the screen, please? Would we lose Mr. Whelan? There you are. All right, anybody want to go first? Yes, Ms. Anderson.
If we can go to the next sheet. I guess my question is, is there a reason why the pitch of the roof changed from the other roofs? Why there's 2 different pitches used?
Yeah, so some of the roof pitches at the front, we were working with a pretty steep roof pitch. And just trying to articulate and break up some of the masses. So I have a few smaller vertical elements, and I think you're talking about the flatter roof pitch at the back is mainly just to keep the overall height of the building lower.
Would it break the height limit if you matched the steeper pitches?
I have to double check the height limit again. I'm spacing on that.
Okay.
But we could look into it.
Okay.
I think it's 35 feet.
That's my only question.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Anybody else have questions? Mr. Black, is that raising your hand?
Yep, it was me. Can you go back to the landscape plan, please? I just noticed that my question has to do with along the driveway. I see what is labeled as a 2 foot 4 inch wide planter. I see that, but why does it not extend all the way out to the street?
I believe part of it is because our fire department access requirements and widths that we needed to accommodate. Part of the concession waiver availability requests that were allowed through state bonus density law is to not extend that planter and not provide it in the exact dimensions. Some of the zoning ordinance landscape, parking lot landscape design standards are part of that request. But I believe it had to do with maintaining that distance across the whole drive. And so you'll notice that we have some of it along the north, and then we pull it up next to the building along the north of the front building towards the driveway.
So what would you intend to have on the property line? Would it be a fence? Would it be, I'm assuming it's probably a fence, a wood fence? Is that
Yeah,
true?
as part of our DART review package that we're preparing, we'll be looking at fences and hedges potentially for that. So that will be developed.
Okay, that was it. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Black. Anything else, Mr. Olson, Mr. Wheeler?
No questions?
No questions.
I have a question in regards to open yard space. I sense and notice that you're very tight on that. Can we go to either the site plan or whatever plan denotes the open yard?
The landscape plan as well as the site plan shows the area. It's mostly, we do have the 20 by 20 foot area mostly in the rear portion, and then a portion of, I guess, the northwestern corner there. The hatched green is also part of our open yard area. We just meet it.
So Ms. Jones, yeah, just meet it. Are you allowed to have your balcony overhang the open yard space, or does it have to go clear to the sky?
I'll have to double check the code reference. I know it changed with Title 30 versus Title 28, which used to preclude some of those spaces from being counted. So we can double check that.
That's a very important thing
Swanson
because
might
you're.
Ms. Swanson might be able to
That's
chime in on that.
Hello. I am back.
Hello.
Yes, they are allowed to overhang. There are specific requirements about the height. They need to be at least 7 feet in clearance. And then the overall overhang encroachments can be no more than 20%. So we needed to have some calculations on the plans to confirm all of that. But at this concept stage, what we are looking at is an appropriate level of detail.
Great, thank you for reviewing that previous to our review. I think I'll reserve my other question for, well, I'll reserve my question for comments. So, anybody have comments? Mr. Olson.
In general, it's an uninspiring design, actually, to this point. I'd assume that there would be development of some of these ideas that the architect has started. I would hope that there would be some aesthetic development of the stairways. They are, it seems to me that they need some help. I don't have other comments.
I thank you, Mr. Olson. Anybody else? Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I actually think that this is well cited and fits in with the neighborhood, and I appreciate the use of materials. And I think, like Mr. Olson said, development of the details will come, and maybe the railing can be studied again, but I actually think it works well. I just think that the roof pitches should all be the same.
Right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Wheeland.
Sure, I'm going to agree with Ms. Anderson and Mr. Olson in the general regard and disposition to the elements. I would disagree with Ms. Anderson. I kind of do like the randomness of the roof pitches, but I would agree with the others that the detailing, especially on the stairs and railing, needs more study. And the one elevation that we're not looking at, all of these elevations have a randomness to it, which I think works well with the different roof pitches, but there is one elevation, yes, there, the north, the one on the lower right. If that could be randomized, if I may be permitted to use such a word, to match the other elevations, I think it would make a cohesive whole. And a final comment, I think it's regrettable that at least half of the site is devoted to the automobile, and that, well, you've pushed the development to the limit. I'm sure you've provided everything necessary to get as much as you possibly can on there, but all the opportunities for a rich landscaped interior space have been erased by the parking. And one final comment, don't you have to have a hammerhead to back out of that handicapped space? That's a question. I should have got that out earlier, but that concludes my comments, Vice Chair Six.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Black, we haven't heard from you. You have something to say?
Well, I'd agree with most of the comments that have been made. I think the project, I mean, architecturally, I think it has a certain charm to it that I'm looking forward to seeing being developed. I mean, I think it'll work nicely with the neighborhood. Again, like Mr. Whalen said, I wish there was more landscape. It seems like we fight this battle with every project like this one, but on these narrow, long lots. But I think conceptually, I think what I see is, appealing to me. That's all.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm very contrary to most all of you. I feel that when you look at the slides of the neighborhood, there is an exciting movement toward a Victorian bungalow with the new projects and some very good examples of the existing existing homes. And I think it's very unfortunate that we're seeing this contemporary style in the midst of what could become a very definite pattern in this neighborhood, a charming pattern. And I would very much want to see this go more Victorian bungalow style, compatible with the neighborhood. Number two, I think that if we go to the site plan, I think that the site circulation is extremely poor. I mean, you have. Can we go to the floor plans? I think both of them are together on one sheet. Yeah, so here we are. We're in our car and we live up on the second floor, and we park our car. We have to take our groceries around almost 360 degrees, at least 270 degrees around and up the back stairs and up to my unit, passing the three bottom units all the time. It doesn't make it. It's very poor in my opinion. I would think that there'd be an opportunity to flip the second floor and stagger the plates and have the entries on the downsheet side and do some tricky stairway where those bicycles are, and turn and have a plank way over the space on the airspace above the loading zone for the handicap. It would centralize your circulation from and short circuit this long route and centralize your circulation from car to unit. So I'm not thrilled with this project at all, but defer to the rest of the board members if there is a movement to feel that this is acceptable.
Well, I'm afraid that perhaps.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that also typical to our concerns, I think we need more photo documentations of how the neighbors, especially on the east side unit, the unit in the back of the site, how the neighbors each side of that are affected by second story view down into their properties.
So, Vice Chair 6, I what I call an uninspiring elevations is also it's an uninspiring development. So I agree with you. And so if there was any further participation in this kind of thinking to send this project back for another step at trying to find a more creative development of this lot, I would join it.
I too would support that notion, and I think Vice Chair 6's comments about the appropriateness of the imagery are especially well-founded for the neighborhood. It appears that even so far as roof pitches in the neighborhood are much lower or much less than the proposed. And yes, I would like to see some alternate site plans and architectural expression that more closely align with the neighborhood.
So we're kind of in between this. Does anybody want to make a motion? It seems like there is a range of opinions here. Would anybody in the mid-range like to make a motion?
Vice Chair Six, I believe it's just comments only. I don't think there is a motion, but we welcome your comments.
Very good. So we don't have to,
Hey,
we don't have to agree, guys.
Yay.
So, Mary, what do we need to do to summarize? Do you have a handle on the summary, the various comments that have happened?
No, if you could please provide a summary, that would be nice.
Yeah, let's back up. Ms. McGuire, do we not need some kind of motion, even though we don't have a, even though we're at concept?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Actually, at this time, I'd like to call Stephanie Swanson. It was agendized for a concept review. So I believe it does need a motion. It needs a motion with just your conceptual comments. But thank you, Stephanie.
Hello. Back again. Yes, that is correct. So this is scheduled for concept review, not one-time concept review. So you can go ahead and give a motion to continue to a certain hearing or to continue indefinitely to address your comments. But yes, a motion is appropriate.
Okay, I think I know how to handle this. If the rest of the board members would allow me to make a motion for indefinite continuance with the following comments that the majority of the board find that the site plan and especially the circulation of the site circulation needs to be restudied and provide more direct access from units to the central parking area. The majority of the board find that the architecture presented is, let's say, could be made more compatible with the neighborhood, given the fine and several examples of the bungalow and Victorian styles. Some board members feel the architecture as presented is acceptable and would like to see it further developed. That the board would like to see more documentation of how the adjacent neighbors will be affected by second story views into their property. And I think that's about it. Is there anyone want to help and fill this in?
Yes, I would add, I'm not quite sure how this fits in with the motion, but I would like, you had said that some of the commissioners approve of the architectural design, the exteriors, but I think if it also said some did not approve of it and asked for a more creative solution to the elevations.
I think what Mr. Olson, I think what we need to do, let's do a straw vote with the various opinions and see where the board lies. So I would offer a straw vote for those who find the presented architecture to be acceptable. And I think I'll leave it right there. No further definition. So 2 board members find acceptable as presented. And therefore we have a 2-3 vote. I think that clarifies and is fair to everybody's opinions and expression.
So then that, what you had said, some board members approve, that needs to be revised, that part of your motion.
Okay, Mary, let's reread the motion and see how we craft it differently.
So I'll second the motion if it hadn't been seconded, so that we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Number one, the majority of the board finds that the site plan, especially the site circulation, needs to be restudied, provide more direct access from the units to the central parking area.
Let's stop there, please. So is that something we need a straw vote on also?
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a straw, in lieu of that statement, majority of the board, let's have a straw vote for those who find that the existing site circulation is acceptable as presented. 1 to 4. Okay, so Mary, our condition, our first, I'm getting tired. Our first motion would be that that one board member finds the circulation as presented acceptable, and 4 board members find that the circulation needs to be restudied. Number 2, 2 board members find the architecture style and massing acceptable, and 3 board members find that the architecture and massing needs more study to be more compatible with the bungalow and Victorian examples in the neighborhood. And then Mary, if you, number 3 is?
Yeah, so let's see. So then I guess the last point I have is the board would like to see more documentation of how adjacent neighbors will be impacted by second story views.
And that's it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so is
I would
the
like-
seconder?
I would like
Go
to
ahead.
offer an additional condition, and that is the one that Mr. Black spoke of, and some effort made to create space for more landscaping within the site than is currently provided.
Excellent point.
Yep.
Yes.
As a maker of the motion, I will support that.
Yes.
And the second does also.
Okay, I think we have a reasonably understood motion on the floor.
All right, I can go ahead and take a roll call vote, and I'll start with Vice Chair Sick,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Leyland.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Apple.
Thanks, you
Thank
guys.
Board Member.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that is our final, yes, our final event for the night. So I wish you goodbye from the AB Architects Board of Review from beautiful Santa Barbara. Good night.